Hey, everybody. Thank you all for coming back for part two. So once again, this is something new that we're doing. We really want to ensure that you all are able to kind of come to an episode and hear the journey, learn about the person, get a sense of their culture, what they're doing. But on the other hand, we want you to learn something and make it something actionable that you're actually going to apply to your life and to your career or to your business. So the great thing here is that once again, Nkem is a lead product manager at the company Attentive. And once again, he can definitely give you insight into what it means to be a product manager. But for this particular episode, we're going to tap into how do you conquer the product manager interview? Dun, dun, dun. All right, so we'll get right into it. No need for reintroductions. But my first question to you is, how does somebody prepare for this interview? And let's talk about it from the lens of somebody who consciously has realized that this is what I want to do. Not exploring, but they've determined I'm going for it.
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, you want to get your resume and your LinkedIn up to speed, right? So sitting in the seat of a hiring manager, what a hiring manager is actually looking for, especially in product, is someone who, and when I'm telling the story of my company or my team or my organization, I have a certain vision for what's going to get me from A to B, right? What I'm looking for is somebody who has the skill set or the potential to take my company from that A to that B. And when I look at them, what I want to see is this person, has this person in their past, in their previous history, done things that are applicable, that would actually give me confidence that they can take my company to the next level or write that next chapter there. They're basically looking for your story, how your story maps to what I need here. How that actually relates and translates to product management is that what I'm actually looking for is the reps. Have you put in enough reps in your product journey to be able to work here? And depending on the level of product that I'm looking for, I'm going to either be looking for less reps or maybe more reps. It all depends.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I think you highlight a good point. What I kind of want to do is every single interview is always going to be something that's more about your soft skills and then obviously about your hard skills, right? So start with I never want to say easier. Let's start with the soft skills, right? And talk about it. Like, what are the soft skills that are in demand for a product manager?
Well, I mean, first of all, you have to have an extreme amount of empathy. That's baseline number one thing. So you have to have empathy with the customer, and you have to have empathy with your coworkers, with your engineers, and you have to have empathy for your stakeholders as well. So when I say empathy, it's being able to relate and feel where they're coming from and put yourself in their shoes, and how that actually translates when you're talking to a customer, being able to envision, hey, why would a customer do this? What are they thinking? Like, really trying to get to know where they're coming from so you can build the right product. When you're talking to your coworker, it's how do I deliver this message to this person on my engineering team so they understand the importance of what we're building and they feel motivated to walk with me on this journey that I'm leading them down to develop this product. When I'm talking to a stakeholder, how do I quickly disseminate information in a way that they're going to understand and they're going to get behind whatever I'm pitching, right? You have to, depending on the audience that you're pitching to, you have to switch your mind state and your mind frame to actually reach them more effectively.
Amen to that. Thank you for that. And outside of empathy, what else? Is it communication? Is it leadership? Like, what are the other keywords that maybe should be on someone's resume and they should be able to talk about how they've applied those words? So what other words are there outside of being empathetic?
Well, communication is really key. Remember what I said about switching depending on who your audience is? That's very, very key there. You have to be a good writer. You have to be concise. People really underestimate how much being a good writer actually benefits you when you're going to write a lot of specs as a product manager. So you have to be a good writer. In addition to that, I know people hate presentations, people hate public speaking, but you have to be a good public speaker. You are actually talking to one of the worst public speakers in history right now.
I beg to differ.
So I had to work on it so much. Like I get stage fright. I'm not the best talker. I'm not very eloquent, but I put in a lot of work to get better at it, right? So I'm actually kind of decent now. I'm not spectacular, but I'm much better than I'm much better than the past. So communication is very key as well. On the leadership side of things, leadership, and everybody has different leadership styles. My personal leadership style is that I'm not going to ask people to do something that I wouldn't do myself, right? So when I first get into a job, and this is a little past, I guess this is past actually applying for the job and doing the interview and everything. When I first get in, this is something key for y'all who are starting new product management jobs. I am there in the first 6 months to kill everything in sight. I'm knocking down every door. You give me something, I'm running through it. No matter what, I'm going to get it done. Why is that? Well, when your teammates see that you work super hard and then you're willing to be a servant to them and you're willing to do all of this work to make sure that you're pushing things past the goal line, they are going to be more likely to step up when you need them to. Yes. So I'm going to do a lot of favors for you, right? Up front. It's a little sneaky, but there's going to be a time that I'm going to ask you to do some favors for me and go a little bit beyond your calling so we can get this stuff done. I'm just, making that deposit right now so I can withdraw it later, basically.
I love that explanation. Thank you for that. So once again, y'all, some relevant words: leadership, communication, empathy is number one. There's a reason why he said it first and was going to leave it that way. It's true. I think that empathy is something that encompasses everything else that we did bring up. So thank you for sharing those soft skills. Let's get into the technical skills. Let's talk about understanding data analytics and metrics and setting KPIs and maybe the case studies. So what are the more hard technical skills or whatever that they should have?
Yeah, and it all depends on the company that you're interviewing for. So different companies have different types of product managers, and they have different types of interviews, and they have different perceptions on what they think is a good product manager. One thing to get out of the way is if you interview and you don't think that you do well, you don't get this job opportunity, that does not mean that you're not a good product manager. That does not mean that you're not a good product manager candidate. That means that you might not have been a fit for this type of product management role. I want to make that very, very clear because it varies a lot. There's product managers that are very marketing based, and there's product managers that are super technical. Like they might be checking in code. There's the whole spectrum there. So with that said, you got to kind of figure out what type of role am I actually interviewing for. So with that said, that kind of sets the stage for the different type of questions that you might get as in an interview. There's a case study type question. There are behavioral type questions. There's walk me through your resume and let's talk about your past projects. There's the more UX type interaction. And then there's like cultural as well. I've seen it all. Basically. So let's talk about the hardest one first. Hardest one might be the case study, and there's different types of case studies, right? The most, I guess, prolific one that you're going to get, and there's different variations of this, is putting you in a situation. Hey, design a video conferencing tool for the elderly or something like that, right? And then they'll just leave it like that, and you have to walk your way through how you would actually design that. The key to those types of questions, and like I said before, there's different variations of those questions. They might actually ask you what's your favorite product and then have you break that down there. Or they might actually ask you what's a product that you can think that can be improved and ask you to break it down there. That's actually the same basic type of question. They're just asking in a different way. But anyway, the way you break that down, you want to start, first of all, always with the user. And that shows that empathy piece that I talked about before. For me, if you're going down, the basic way to break that down is user. You talk about the pain points. You talk about what pain points are most proficient, or which ones are the ones that you actually want to focus on. You talk about what you would actually design to hit those pain points. You talk about what tracking and metrics would you put behind those? Talk about how you'd release it, how you'd work with marketing, how would you monetize it, all of that, and you go down that list there. Now, that's very basic, like 2 seconds of what I just laid out right there, right? There's a lot of variations off of that. Me personally, whenever I look at a problem, and this is in my job, when I'm designing something, I look at 3 things. How painful is this problem? How frequent does the target segment actually experience this problem? And then also, does this target segment have the money to actually pay for a solution to actually solve this, right? I even start my interview questions when I'm answering those off with those 3, because if one of those 3 is off, there's no reason that you should be designing this in the first place. So with that said, I start off with those 3 and I kind of roll through some of the other things that I laid out for you in a certain way, shape, or form. Everybody's going to have their own framework on how they actually tackle this. And as you get better at it, it doesn't even sound like a framework anymore. You're just, talking, right? So I interview all the time. I've interviewed a lot. So it just comes naturally to me. So I don't think it exactly sounds like a framework. It just kind of just comes out of my mouth, because even in my day-to-day life, if I look at any product or whatever, I instantly start to think, hey, why did they design it like this? Who are they actually aiming for? Why was this shaped like this? How do they monetize? All of that, right? It just comes naturally because that's how I think now. I was conditioned to think like that.
Well, basically, your product manager hat is on 24/7.
24/7. I mean, this.
In other words, you see that new blender in your kitchen, and you're probably dreaming on it. Like, wow, look at this. Even to the mug. Like, why is the handle this way?
even to the mug. So yeah, I'm thinking about it all the time. So that's kind of the case study. There's other case studies that you might get. You might get an estimation question, which is basically, it's kind of, you might say, all right, how many, what's it called? The popular one that you hear, how many streetlights are in Manhattan, right? And really what they're actually looking for is your thought process and how you break it down. There's no right answer to that. They're just trying to see how you actually break that down. So that's a common one that they'll give for Google. So the way that you'll do that is basically you might say, oh, I know that there's 100 streets that go east to west in Manhattan. And let's say there's 50 streets that go north to south in Manhattan, right? What is the number of intersections do they have there? And then from that number of intersections, you'd say, okay, you have 4 traffic lights per intersection. All right, multiply that out, right? And then how many lights are in each traffic light, right? Multiply that out, right? And then are we talking about the pedestrian signals and whatever? If you're adding those, okay, add those on. And then you start talking about after you've made that estimation, high level, pie in the sky, you start talking about what can actually influence that estimation up or down. So, if maybe there's only some 3-way intersections or something like that, those types of things. With those types of estimation case questions, what you want to actually think of or have in your back pocket is common things like, what's the population of the U.S.? It's like 320 million about, right? You can maybe round that down to 300 million, so the math that you do in your head is a little bit easier. You want to think of how many households there are. The average family is probably 3, so you say 100,000 households there are in the U.S., that sort of thing. So you have these numbers off the top of your head, so you can actually work off something round to actually knock out that estimation question there.
Thank you for that thorough breakdown. I'm not gonna lie, I'm mentally taking notes. Like, whoa. Okay. I'm like, wait, I didn't know that one. Hold on, I should know that one. I'm playing around. I'm not a big pen and paper person, so I'm just really soaking it in myself. So if you all think that this interview is just for you, it's not. It's for me too. I'm like, whoa. Thank you for that. I really do appreciate that. So we kind of addressed the technical side, the case studies. We talked about the soft skills. I think just one more piece I wanted to talk about was the importance of understanding your data. You basically talked about that, about understanding the numbers and everything like that, but more about systems. What software should somebody who is trying to be a product manager at least kind of be acquainted with and understand?
Yeah, so in general, and every single, we've talked about this before,
Yeah.
every single product manager is a little bit different. They're going to have different sets of softwares, right? So I'll talk about the different categories. You're going to have something to take notes in, right? So it could be Word, Google Docs, or whatever. That's pretty standard there. You probably deal with a lot of spreadsheets there. It's easy to create or to do analytics on spreadsheets. It just makes things really simple. But after that, one of your maybe best friends might be your project management software. And today it's Jira's everywhere, so it might be Jira. Um, there's other ones like Rally. I think Microsoft has another one, but in my last 3 or 4 jobs, it's been Jira, honestly. Atlassian's suite there. Atlassian also has Confluence, which is a documentation tool, which kind of serves that Microsoft Word purpose that I said before. So those kind of go hand in hand. So we talked about note taking. We talked about project management. There's going to actually also be maybe road mapping as well too, because for example, a lot of those tools that do that day-to-day management, they're not actually good at displaying roadmaps in an organized, just easy to understand way for your leadership to actually take a look at. So those might be your ahas or your, I think product board is another one there, or you could just really old school Excel it out and drag cells and all of that to show people how long things are going to take. That's what I do. Excel, I mean, I just use it for a lot of things. So it just makes things very, very easy to see. You could do it in PowerPoint or whatever, right? So that's another one. Monday is another one that actually does that type of road mapping and project management stuff. Now let's get to analytics tools. So there's a lot of these things. There's Mixpanel, there's Heap, there's Segment, there's Tableau, there's Looker, there's so many of these tools. There's Tapalytics. No matter what tool that you actually use, really, it just gets down to, all right, do you know a query language, first of all? So do you know SQL? SQL is probably going to be the one that they roll off of on the back end, pretty standard or whatever. Do you know SQL so you can write some queries if they don't come out of the box? You probably want to get at least, I won't say super proficient, but you can put basic queries together. You want to be able to do some joins here and there because you don't want to always have to tap the engineers and ask them, hey, could you put this query together for me? They're going to get pissed off at you eventually. You're going to,
Like, what can you do?
right. It's going to serve your best interest if you learn how to do SQL queries. And every single organization that you step in, their database tables are going to be different. They might be messed up here and there. You might be like, what the hell am I looking at? Yeah, you just have to get intimate with their database tables and learn how to join some data. I think I highly recommend that. So after analytics, what else is there? There's, the customer experience tools like your Zendesk, your Freshdesk, all of that, to actually take a look at what customers are saying, and that's pretty simple. There's usability or user data gathering tools. So things like Pendo or things like Intercom that, those little pop-ups on the corner of sites where they'll be like, hey, how did you like this page or something? And, you can enter that. Getting familiar with those here and there. Like I said, all of these different tools, it all depends on what you're actually using, right? Slack, obviously, I mean, everybody uses Slack, so that's a pretty easy one. But yeah, those are some of the ones off the top of my head. I mean, I'm looking right now. I have SQL Pro up right now, which is
Always
to actually write SQL queries and all of that. So that's one. I have Notion right now, which is a note-taking tool. I have my terminal up in case, I was actually writing a little bit of a Python script earlier this week to analyze some data. Basically, you're going to do whatever it takes to get stuff done. That's it. And whatever tool that it takes, go ahead and use it. There's a lot at your disposal, and things are decently easy these days. You can jump on YouTube and learn a lot. So I highly recommend you just jump into it.
Thank you for that. So once again, everybody, this is all about the interview process for product management. I have one final question, the question that people tend to probably care the most about.
All right.
And that question, you're probably going to respond and say it depends, because it does depend. But the question is, what is the range of a salary for someone pursuing product management? I know the stage matters, the industry matters, but just a comfortable range of someone who's probably getting in, just starting as a product manager.
So yeah, that okay. If you're entry level, that
Yeah.
that highly depends on the company that you're actually applying for. So let's say you're in a small market and you're working for a tech company that this sounds like a little bit of shade, but I was going to say that
Say
no,
it.
that nobody really knows. It's just a small tech company. It's not like really renowned or anything like that. It's a lifestyle company, and you're entry level. You might come in at like 50, 60. 50 is too low. Let's call it 60, right? And this isn't like an associate product manager. Now, if you came in at that level at like Google or something like that, I want to say that you're probably, and that's in the Bay, that's in a really expensive city. You're probably coming in at like maybe like 180 or something like that. And then you have like stock options that put you up to maybe like 250 plus or something. And with that said, you have to take everything into consideration. What's the cost of living? Do you actually like living in this place? What's your outlook? What's your future look like? Something that I really want to emphasize, and this is what I learned this fact, or it's not a fact, but I learned this thought process from this dude, Shreyas, that works at Stripe. He's on Twitter at Shreyas. Dude he's the truth, man. I subscribe to all this stuff that he writes. I'm like, yo, I'm learning a lot from this guy here. Very, very knowledgeable dude.
So we're taking a pause real quick. Say how you spell that again?
Shreyas. So that's Shreyas.
Iyer? Shreyas Iyer or Shreyas Doshi?
Doshi.
Doshi.
Yeah.
Okay, found it. Keep going.
Yeah, so him in particular, he just laid it out so clean. When you're looking at new jobs, especially if you're a mid-level product manager, you want to take three things into account, and you want to get these three things right as far as your rankings, because it's going to influence where you go. You're going to take money, the title, and then also the scope of the position into account. And you really want to rank those and be true to yourself and really ask yourself which one is most important out of those three, because those heavily change your trajectory on what company you pick. You could, like I said before, you can work at a company that's, not that big or notable, and you could be the VP of product or the chief product officer over there, and you could be making, let's call it like 250 or something like that, right? You're making a lot of money over there, right? Or you can be a product manager, not chief product officer or anything, or a VP or whatever, and you're working at Google, and your total compensation is like 350 or 400 to 500, right? Who wins? It depends.
Right.
Do you like the title? Do you like the money? Do you like the scope? You have to determine that and figure out which one is best for yourself.
I love that. That's a beautiful piece of advice, actually. So once again, y'all, it's not just about the money. It's about those two other aspects as well. So Nkem, once again, this is part 2 of the interview. He has to go, y'all. He has to go. But thank you so much once again for sharing your journey with us, giving us some insight into your upbringing, coming here from another country into America, and like I said, really building a certain level of success that I think that not only you should be proud of, but anybody who looks like you and anybody can be proud of. So I really want to commend you for everything that you've done. I have to throw it in there one more time, you all. I know that this episode is about how to interview for product management, but if you wanted to go to grad school first, please, once again, get his book. Why am I struggling to show this? Here we go. After school, is getting an MBA really worth it? All right, you all can find this on Amazon. Please be sure to check out this book. Don't let this knowledge go to waste. All right, you all. He's probably cringing that I'm marketing it so hard right now. He didn't ask me to, I swear to God. But he should be marketed this much. He deserves it. All right, everybody. So thank you all so much for tuning in. This sums up part 1 and part 2, and we will see you all for the next episode. Take care, y'all.
Thanks, everybody.